Forget the politicians. The most important special relationship in Europe right now isn't being forged between prime ministers and stuffy meeting rooms. It's a blossoming bromance between a king and a president, a bond built over vintage champagne, environmental passion, and a masterful understanding of power that transcends politics. As the once hyped friendship between King Charles and UK leader Keir Starmer appears to cool into a more formal, transactional arrangement, another, more powerful alliance has taken center stage. This is the inside story of how King Charles III and French President Emmanuel Macron are redefining European diplomacy, one witty remark and lavish banquet at a time, crafting a new chapter in a centuries-long story of rivalry and respect. Today, we're diving deep into this fascinating connection. How did this unlikely friendship truly blossom between the monarch of Great Britain and the leader of a republic that famously and violently did away with its own kings? What were the unscripted, almost mischievous jokes that Charles deployed to charm even the most hardened Republicans? And what deeper message did they carry? And most importantly, how is the king using the ancient tools of soft power, exclusive garden tours, priceless royal collections, and the secret weapon of fluent French to subtly outmaneuver politicians and reshape Britain's influence on the world stage? The stage for this diplomatic masterclass was set during President Macron's recent state visit, the first by a European head of state since the seismic, self-inflicted wound of Brexit. From the very moment the French president's plane touched down, the atmosphere was less about stiff, awkward protocol and more about genuine, palpable warmth. Eyewitnesses described a scene of constant amiability, of easy, unforced smiles, familiar arm pats, and friendly backslaps between the two leaders and their wives, a world away from the strained photo opportunities that often define such events. A grand carriage procession through Windsor, with its fairy tale horses and historic carriages, wasn't just a formality. It was a rolling display of personal chemistry for the world to see, a deliberate piece of theater projecting unity and friendship. This was immediately followed by a carefully curated private lunch, an intimate affair designed to showcase the royal collection's incredible French treasures, a subtle yet powerful non-verbal message reminding their guest of the deep, intertwined cultural heritage that politics can never fully sever. But the true centerpiece of the visit, the moment that will be studied by diplomats for years to come, was the state banquet at Windsor Castle and the king's remarkable speech. The prepared address, briefed to the press beforehand, was a serious affair, a moment to officially cement what he called a more than cordial entente, a clever play on the historic entente cordiale of 1904. Charles spoke gravely of the multitude of complex threats facing both nations, from climate change to global instability, emphasizing that, as friends and as allies, we face them together. He spoke of the challenges that know no borders, and soberly warned that no fortress can protect us against them this time. But then, something extraordinary happened that wasn't in the script. The king, looking entirely in his element, went off pissed. With a visible twinkle in his eye, he made a joke about the indomitable Gallic spirit of the beloved French cartoon hero Asterix. He then playfully mused on how, just a few years ago, the French, the undisputed masters of wine, would have considered the very idea of drinking English sparkling wine an impossible, even laughable absurdity. Finally, he acknowledged their long and often contentious history, saying that the two countries would not be neighbors if we did not have our differences, with amicable competition and occasionally even, dare I say, confusion. The effect was electric. The laughter was genuine. The speech was a resounding success, a perfect blend of solemn statesmanship and disarming personal charm. In those few unscripted moments, he did more for Anglo-French relations than a dozen formal treaties could. Even the most die-hard anti-monarchist would have had to concede that the king had played a blinder, doing himself and his country a profound service. This wasn't just a good speech, it was a political masterstroke. In a post-Brexit world, with Britain still navigating its new, often isolated position, this visit was charged with immense significance. Much of the new government's activity has felt like a tacit apology for that continental schism. In that context, Charles's address can only be interpreted as a deliberately and powerfully pro-European statement of unity. When he spoke, with what observers called clear and genuine sincerity, of his awe of France's extraordinary attributes and achievements, it was a message of reconciliation broadcast from the very heart of the British establishment, a clear signal that, despite political divisions, the cultural and historical bonds remain unbreakable. The glamorous presence of the Princess of Wales, Catherine, also added a vital layer of modern appeal and relief, signaling a monarchy at full strength, ready to deploy its most valuable assets. If you're fascinated by how this ancient institution of royalty wields such incredible influence in our modern 21st century world, do hit that like button to show your support. This remarkable friendship between Charles and Macron is no sudden development. It has been meticulously cultivated for years, long before Charles ascended to the throne. When he was still the Prince of Wales, often viewed as the eternal apprentice, he and the dynamic young French president bonded over a surprising range of shared passions. They found powerful common ground on critical environmental issues, a lifelong and often lonely crusade for Charles. For Macron to engage so seriously on this topic was a form of validation for the king's decades of work. They also connected over a mutual appreciation for the ceremonial aspects of sovereignty, a shared belief that tradition, history, and spectacle have a vital role to play in defining and projecting a nation's soul. This was spectacularly demonstrated in September of 2023, when Macron hosted the King and Queen at the legendary Palace of Versailles. It was an event designed to impress, a clear statement of profound respect. Macron ensured the royals were treated to a banquet of almost unimaginable lavishness, featuring delicacies like blue lobster and, in a particularly symbolic choice, Paul Roger Cuvée Winston Churchill champagne, a powerful toast to a historic alliance against tyranny. Macron's deep respect for the British monarchy was also profoundly evident when the late Queen Elizabeth II passed away. He released a statement that resonated deeply across the channel. To you, she was your queen. To us, she was the queen. It was a simple, perfect, and powerful acknowledgement of her unique global stature. During this more recent visit, he made a point to pay his respects privately at her resting place in St. George's Chapel, a deeply personal gesture that speaks volumes about the man and his genuine relationship with the Windsor family. This powerful connection exists against a backdrop of immense international uncertainty and political fragility. Macron himself is facing a turbulent period at home. Mockingly nicknamed Jupiter for his once lofty, almost imperial ambitions, he is now widely regarded as a busted flush in his own country, his political power waning as he clings on until his presidency ends in May of 2027. But for King Charles, there is no such deadline. His reign has just begun, and he appears to be embracing his new role with a surprising and energetic gusto. The article intriguingly describes him as an interventionist and decidedly partisan monarch, a fascinating and dramatic departure from his mother's famously inscrutable neutrality. He is in a rare and powerful position of influence, and he seems determined to use it. A key weapon in his diplomatic arsenal is his command of the French language. He speaks it almost fluently, a skill that allows him to converse with Macron, who is himself an excellent English speaker, with a degree of informality, subtlety, and nuance that is simply impossible for most world leaders. It allows them to bypass the stilted, translated exchanges of formal diplomacy and connect on a human level, sharing jokes and asides that build true rapport. This easy, sophisticated relationship with the French president stands in stark, dramatic contrast to the palpable tensions surrounding another upcoming state visit, that of Donald Trump, currently scheduled for September. There has been much worried, hand-wringing discussion about whether this visit has been forced upon the king by an over-eager government, and the potential for a diplomatic car crash looms large. But amidst that anxiety, one thing is crystal clear. Whatever formal agreements are painstakingly made between the politicians, the truly special relationship, The one built on genuine accord and mutual respect is between the head of a centuries-old constitutional monarchy and the president of a republic that long since tore up the very idea of kingship. We dive into stories like this every week, uncovering the hidden strategies and personal dynamics behind the biggest headlines. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss our next deep dive into the corridors of power. What we are witnessing is the art of soft power in its most refined and effective form. King Charles knows that the trappings of state, the subtle gestures, and the personal connections can be just as important, if not more so, than any formal negotiation over trade deals or migrant boats. Those contentious matters are left to the politicians, to Starmer and Macron, to hammer out separately in sterile meeting rooms. But the king is playing a different, longer, and arguably more important game. When he takes President Macron on a personal tour of his beloved gardens at Windsor, showing him the work on nature restoration and biodiversity, it's more than a pleasant stroll. It is a shared moment between two men genuinely passionate about the future of the planet. It is a quiet demonstration of shared values. It is pure, unadulterated, soft power. When he showcases priceless French art from the royal collection, it reinforces a shared cultural history that transcends transient political squabbles. The well-judged, perfectly pitched Windsor speech will have done Britain's reputation and his own immeasurable good in these turbulent and febrile times. The article concludes with a powerful and slightly provocative thought. For this most green-fingered of monarchs, he is carefully planting and nurturing the seeds of influence on the world stage. Watching them grow into powerful alliances will surely be a most rewarding experience. And if, in the process of securing these vital international friendships, he happens to overshadow his own prime minister, well, it's doubtful that King Charles will be too heartbroken by